But you know, the toughest thing is to love somebody who has done something mean to you.
What if the gentleman in the cardigan, the one who told millions of children they were special, was not exactly who he seemed? Fred Rogers built an image so pure, so carefully protected, that the world never thought to question it. But behind the calm smile and soft voice was a man constantly managing two worlds, one public, one private. He carried secrets, pressures, and choices that never made it to television. And while his legacy remains untouchable, few people realize how much he had to hide to keep it that way. This is the untold story of how America's favorite neighbor lived a double life and how he managed to get away with it. For decades, Fred Rogers was more than a television host. He was a symbol of calm in a chaotic world. On Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he entered living rooms with a cardigan, soft shoes, and words that made children feel safe. To millions, he was not acting. He was kindness made human. Parents trusted him, kids adored him, and critics praised him for offering gentleness in a noisy, chaotic television landscape. Few realized Rogers was not discovered by Hollywood or shaped by fame. He built himself deliberately. Born to a wealthy Pennsylvania family, he studied music composition and planned to become a minister. The show was never meant to entertain. It was his ministry in disguise. Every smile, pause, and word was intentional. Rogers' calm manner became both armor and cage. He refused to yell or fake emotion for the camera. People assumed the cardigan defined him, that he could never be angry or flawed. That illusion became a heavy burden. Behind the scenes, Rogers controlled nearly everything. He approved scripts, music, and pacing, ensuring nothing broke the show's calm. Even the smallest disruption could shatter the feeling he created. The world saw a man seemingly incapable of darkness, but perfection is impossible. Rogers had doubts, frustrations, and private conflicts. He feared being found out, not for wrongdoing, but for being less perfect than imagined. That fear shaped nearly every choice he made. He did not just create a show, he created a persona so flawless, even he struggled to live up to it. As fame grew, the line between Fred and Mr. Rogers blurred. The gentle neighbor everyone loved was real, but also a mirror reflecting what people wanted to believe. Behind the image, cracks began to show, revealing the immense pressure to appear pure, even when reality was far more complicated. As Fred Rogers' reputation grew, so did the expectations around him. To most of America, he was the moral compass of children's television, a man incapable of deception or cruelty. That reputation was a gift, but also a trap. Every action, every word, every friendship had to uphold that image of perfect goodness. For a man who valued honesty above all, the pressure to maintain that illusion became its own kind of deception. The 1960s and 1970s were decades of turbulence, political protests, social revolutions, and changing moral codes. Yet while the culture shifted, Rogers' Neighborhood remained frozen in timeless simplicity. He avoided politics, controversy, and anything that could divide his audience. But that avoidance came with its own quiet compromises. When others spoke out, Rogers stayed silent. When television grew louder, he only whispered. One of the most revealing examples of this double life unfolded through his friendship with Francois Clemmons, the actor who played Officer Clemmons on the show. Clemmons was one of the first recurring black characters on children's television, a powerful symbol of inclusion. But off-camera, Clemmons lived with a truth that was far less accepted at the time. He was gay. When rumors began to circulate about Clemmons' sexuality, Rogers faced a choice. Public television in the 1960s was conservative, and a gay character on a children's show risked national outrage. Rogers told Clemmons that he could not be openly gay and keep his role. He even suggested that Clemmons consider marrying a woman to maintain the show's image. It was a painful request from a man known for compassion, but it reflected the quiet calculation behind his public purity. Clemmons complied, marrying a woman in hopes of protecting both his career and their friendship. But the marriage ended, and the emotional toll lingered. Decades later, Clemmons would reveal that Rogers remained kind and supportive, yet deeply cautious. He asked Clemmons not to visit gay bars, not to wear earrings, not to risk the image that millions of children depended on. To the world, Rogers was an emblem of acceptance. But behind the camera, he was also a man policing appearances, not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear that the show, his life's work, could crumble if even one controversy broke through. Still, Rogers' intentions were complex. In later years, as society changed, he softened. He encouraged Clemens to live honestly and even wrote songs about accepting oneself. But in those earlier years, the man who told children they were loved exactly as they were was still learning what that truly meant. For Fred Rogers, the cost of being perfect was the suppression of anything that did not fit the picture. Every word was filtered, every relationship measured, and as his show became a cultural monument, the pressure to protect that image only grew heavier. That delicate balance between truth and protection, kindness and control, defined the hidden life he never talked about. And soon, those pressures would begin to blur the boundary between the man on screen and the man he really was. When the cameras stopped rolling, Fred Rogers returned to a world quieter and lonelier than most could imagine. He lived modestly, rarely socialized in Hollywood circles, and kept his private life sealed from journalists. To fans, this privacy seemed like humility. To those who knew him, it revealed the weight of the perfection he carried. Rogers was a devoted husband to Joanne Rogers, a concert pianist with wit and warmth. She was one of the few who saw him without the cardigan or calm television voice. Their marriage was built on mutual respect, but even she admitted the world's expectations followed them home. Fred carried his public gentleness into every space, rarely raising his voice, even when angry. Instead, he went silent. Joanne said she could tell when he was deeply upset because he would retreat inward rather than break the illusion he had built. He was not the naive saint people imagined. In private letters and journals, Rogers wrestled with doubt and insecurity. He questioned whether he was truly helping children or merely playing the role they needed. Even his faith brought uncertainty. He wondered if he was being honest or turning belief into performance. For a man devoted to truth and kindness, those questions cut deep. Rogers' private life was governed by routines. He swam daily and weighed exactly 143 pounds, a number representing "I love you." He answered every fan letter by hand, often late at night. His team noticed he never fully rested. Even on vacation, he studied child psychology, music, or faith. The cardigan may have come off, but the persona never did. Friends described him as kind, yet emotionally guarded. He listened more than he spoke, rarely sharing frustrations. Upset feelings became lessons on the show, teaching children about anger or loss, inspired by real experience, not fiction. In that sense, Mr. Rogers was therapy for both his audience and himself. Still, living as both Fred and Mr. took a toll. Maintaining constant purity left little room for imperfection. Adoration brought gratitude and unease. Criticism felt personal. He constantly measured himself against the man children believed he was. The line between authenticity and performance blurred. The show became not just work, but identity, consuming the private man. Fred Rogers once said, "The greatest gift you can give anyone is your honest self." Yet even he knew honesty has limits when the world sees you as flawless. Behind the kindness was a man spending his life trying to prove he deserved the love he gave so freely. That struggle, to live as both real man and myth, would reach its breaking point in one of the most emotionally complex friendships of his life, forcing him to confront the cost of the image he worked so hard to protect. The friendship between Fred Rogers and Francois Clemens was unlike anything else on television at the time. In the late 1960s, Clemens became a familiar face to children across America as Officer Clemens, a friendly neighborhood police officer who sang, smiled, and represented safety in a world that often felt uncertain. But behind the cameras, their on-screen friendship mirrored a much deeper, more complicated bond. Clemens was not just an actor. He was a classically trained musician, a man of deep faith, and one of the first black performers to hold a recurring role on a children's show. Rogers admired him from the start. Yet when whispers spread in Pittsburgh that Clemens was gay, Rogers faced a difficult choice. Public television relied on conservative donors and cautious parents, and an openly gay actor could have jeopardized everything he had built. Rogers asked Clemens to remain discreet, not to visit certain places or speak publicly about his personal life. It was a painful request, born of fear, not malice. Clemens later recalled Rogers saying, "You cannot be out and continue on the show. It is too dangerous for the program to protect both their careers." Clemens agreed. He even married a woman at Rogers' suggestion, hoping to quell suspicion. The marriage ultimately collapsed, leaving Clemens torn between who he was and what the world expected of him. For years, he carried that quiet wound, the knowledge that the man who preached unconditional love could not fully extend it in practice. Yet over time, as cultural attitudes shifted, Rogers evolved too. He never made public statements about sexuality or politics, but privately, his compassion deepened. When Clemens came out openly years later, Rogers did not turn away. He embraced him, literally and figuratively. In one of the most iconic moments on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Rogers invited Clemens to share a small pool of water on a hot day. They removed their shoes and soaked their feet together. A simple act with quiet, profound power. At a time when swimming pools were still battlegrounds of racial segregation, the moment became a silent symbol of unity. For Clemens, it was more than symbolism, it was a personal reassurance. "You are safe with me." Behind the scenes, Rogers told Clemens, "I love you exactly as you are." Clemens would later call those words one of the most profound moments of his life. The same man who had once asked him to hide had come full circle, affirming him in a way only Mr. Rogers could. It was not a public apology, but redemption through quiet empathy. Their friendship revealed both sides of Rogers' double life, the man who managed appearances and the man who sought forgiveness through compassion. His perfection was not hypocrisy, but human contradiction. The struggle to live by ideals in a world that often punished them. By the end of his life, Rogers no longer feared Clemens's truth. He feared that his own caution had caused pain. Their bond endured for decades, proof that genuine kindness can be real, yet complicated, limited, and deeply human. Still, this was only one layer of Rogers' story. While he wrestled privately with morality and compassion, the world outside continued crafting a different image of him, one full of rumors, myths, and legends that twisted his quiet complexity into something far stranger. When a public figure seems too good to be true, people start searching for flaws. For Fred Rogers, that search turned into decades of speculation and rumor. The quiet man in the cardigan became the focus of some of the strangest urban legends in modern American culture. With the rise of the internet, those stories only spread faster, turning his soft-spoken image into a puzzle that begged to be solved. Some tales were harmless, while others were wildly implausible. People whispered that Rogers had been a military sniper in Vietnam, that his long sleeves hid tattoos marking confirmed kills. Others claimed he was a Navy SEAL, a decorated veteran who left a violent past behind to atone through kindness. None of it was true. Rogers never served in the military. He spent his youth studying music, theology, and ministry, not warfare. Yet the idea that someone so gentle must have once been dangerous spread faster than the truth ever could. Why did people believe it? Because perfection makes us uncomfortable. A man with no scandals, no vices, and no visible flaws feels unnatural in a world built on drama. The public wanted a twist, some hidden story to explain the purity they saw. So, in the absence of evidence, they invented one. Even mainstream outlets debunked the myths. Reporters traced their origins to online message boards and tabloids from the 1980s and 1990s. Yet, no matter how often the rumors were disproven, they resurfaced. It was as if the world could not accept that Mr. Rogers' gentleness came from a place entirely untainted. Other stories took subtler forms. Some suggested he was secretly a recluse, detached from the people he inspired. Others claimed his kindness was performative, that off-camera he was stern or cold. People misread quiet reflection as indifference. In truth, those who knew him described Rogers as deeply warm, yet serious. He carried intensity that television could only soften. Cynical theories also arose that Rogers used religion to control his image or hid personal struggles beneath his calm demeanor. None were supported by evidence. Yet their persistence reveals something deeper. We struggle to accept genuine goodness without suspecting hidden motives. We search for hypocrisy because we expect it, not humility. Rogers rarely addressed the rumors, choosing to let them fade. His silence made him seem more mysterious, and the myths became part of his legacy. They transformed him into an enigma, a man the public felt they knew intimately, but never fully understood. Beneath those stories, however, was the real reason Rogers could maintain his private life. He was protected, not by secrets, but by an invisible network of trust. His colleagues, his network, and even the press treated him with respect few public figures receive. That shield, the quiet wall between man and perception, allowed Rogers' double life to remain intact, hidden from the world for decades. Fred Rogers was more than a television figure. He was an institution. From the earliest days of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he understood that maintaining the purity of his message required controlling how the world saw him. That meant building a quiet network of trust that kept his image safe, even as the culture grew skeptical. PBS relied heavily on Rogers' reputation. His show was more than a hit. It was a symbol of what educational television could be. Sponsors, foundations, and even members of Congress viewed him as a moral backbone. That respect gave him unusual power. Most hosts answered to executives. Rogers answered mostly to himself. He wrote scripts, approved guests, oversaw music, and directed the emotional tone. The show's rhythm flowed through his personal sense of timing. Few dared to challenge him. Colleagues loved him, but recognized his word was final. When disagreements arose, they often chose silence. Journalists left interviews disarmed. Rogers' kindness made skepticism feel cruel, and over time, reporters stopped digging for flaws. The institutions around him protected him. PBS filtered press and redirected tough interviews. Rumors were quietly ignored. Even his Pittsburgh community respected his privacy. In an era when exposure could destroy reputations, his image remained untouchable, not because he was perfect, but because no one wanted to tear down someone genuinely decent. This reverence created an invisible shield. Rogers could live privately, make mistakes, and express doubt without public scrutiny. His kindness was both a sanctuary and a fortress. When he passed in 2003, that shield remained, preserved by family, friends, and colleagues. The public saw the neighbor in the cardigan. Those close to him saw the complex, quietly burdened man behind it. Both were real, both necessary, and both protected by a trust few public figures experience. But that protection came with a cost, shaping how his legacy would be remembered and how the world separates the man from the myth. When Fred Rogers passed away in 2003, the country mourned as if it had lost a family member. Strangers left flowers at his studio. Children who had grown into adults wrote letters thanking him for teaching them kindness. In the years since, his image has only grown softer, warmer, almost saint-like. But in turning him into a symbol of perfect goodness, we risk losing sight of what made him truly human, and why his life was far more complex than a gentle smile on a television screen. Rogers did not live a double life in the way rumors claimed. There were no secret crimes, no shocking scandals. His double life was something quieter, something more universal, the constant effort to live up to an image that the world demanded from him. He was a man caught between grace and expectation, between faith and fallibility. Every kind word came with the fear of letting someone down. Every moment of silence carried the weight of all he could not say. In private, he wrestled with the same doubts and contradictions we all do. He feared not being good enough. He carried guilt for the times he had hurt others, even unintentionally. He questioned whether his fame had made him into something he never meant to become, a symbol so polished that it stopped feeling entirely real. But maybe that was the point. The power of Mr. Rogers was not that he was flawless, but that he kept trying to be kind in a world that rarely rewarded kindness. Even now, decades later, people still search for hidden truths about him, as if discovering a flaw would make him more believable. But perhaps the truth is simpler. Fred Rogers' greatest secret was that he was ordinary. He felt jealousy, anger, and exhaustion. He made mistakes. He protected his image because he believed the world needed hope more than it needed his honesty. And maybe, in his own way, that was a sacrifice. His legacy endures because it was never about him. It was about what he gave people permission to feel, that it is acceptable to be gentle, to be patient, to be yourself in a culture that constantly tells you to perform. His double life was not hypocrisy. It was the cost of embodying ideals larger than any one person could sustain. Today, when the internet tears down public figures for the smallest misstep, Fred Rogers stands as an anomaly, a man who survived fame without losing compassion. But his story reminds us that even the kindest souls fight private battles the world will never see. Behind every perfect image lies a person quietly trying to live up to it. So the next time you think of Mr. Rogers, the sweater, the song, the soft voice, remember this. His greatest lesson was not that everyone is special, but that even the people we idolize are just human. And maybe that is what made him so special after all. Before you go, take a second to think about this. How many other public figures are living double lives right now? Not out of deceit, but out of survival. If stories like this make you see familiar faces in a new way, make sure you subscribe. Every week, we uncover the untold sides of the people you thought you knew, the ones history tried to simplify. And if this video gave you something to think about, leave a comment below. Tell me, do you think Fred Rogers was protecting himself or protecting us?